crypto warriors, changing our world day by day. The way of the crypto warriors, can't rely on the bankers, no way.
Good morning, Bix Weir, roadtoroota.com. Your morning horn of Z's, your sip of chaga and C60 coffee. Don't forget your C60. Go to Purple Power, C60 Purple Power. It's on our website. Get the gummies under affiliates. All right. Now is the time to be on the sidelines. How long have I said that? 10 years? It is so important you're on the sidelines. Everything's going to be zeroed out because all the exchanges are going. They're all fraud. Price doesn't matter anymore. It shouldn't matter. You shouldn't look at the price of silver. You shouldn't look at the price of cryptos. You shouldn't look at the stock market, the bond market. Everything they trade is fake. Everything is fake. So silver is playing with the game with the guys over at Virtu Financial. Those who don't know, Virtu Financial used to be called EWT LLC, run by a guy named Vinny Viola. It was Bernie Madoff's counterpart. Still active, 100% still rigging every market. Apparently has the nod from the deep state to do that. So Gary Gensler has known about them. Hell, I've sent shit to Gary Gensler about Virtu Financial from the early days. I mean, back when Gary Gensler was a CFTC commissioner and JP Morgan was rigging the silver market. I think they got 3,000 complaints at one time. Gary Gensler knew all along, and he never did anything. Bart Chilton said it was a political decision. The law should not be political. And you especially should not be promoted to the head of the SEC. Gary Gensler knew all along that FTX was a fraud. All along. Everything about it was fraud. He knew all along that Tether is a fraud, and everybody's been screaming it. Gary Gensler has no excuse. Gary Gensler should be removed along with everybody he hired. As a matter of fact, life would be a hell of a lot better without any regulators at all. But Bix, no one would participate in the markets if there's no regulators. Of course not. Unless it was a open, freely traded market that everybody saw every trade. Because people shouldn't. Now they're dealing in markets, they're throwing their life savings into these investments that are pure fraud. The stock market, the New York Stock Exchange, the bond market, the NASDAQ, complete frauds. Obviously the COMEX, the LBMA, it's not an exchange, and cryptos. People should not participate until it is fixed because you're going to lose everything you have in there. Everything. You're going to have no checking account, no savings account, no 401k. Everything will be gone. And it all comes down to the derivative time bomb. It was set up like this on purpose by Alan Greenspan and others at the end of the 90s. They said, we're not going to regulate derivatives. We can't regulate derivatives. Why? Because the bankers can make a hell of a lot of money on them and rig markets with them. And, oh, by the way, it's also the silver bullet that kills the bankers, which destroys every 401k. If you have a home loan with a little tiny local bank, it's gone. That's great. Your home loan's gone, but so's all your assets. You couldn't pay it anyway. And no, they can't repossess your home. The banks will be lucky to stay out of jail, and I don't think most of them will. The people who run this game should be in jail. That means the people at the IMF, the World Bank, obviously the Federal Reserve. The bad guys there are bad guys within the Fed, and there are good guys. There's a lot of good guys. But there's bad guys within there that have done this. We'll see if the Fed falls on its sword, which I think they're going to. I think that's the plan to end this game. That's what was in the Road to Ruta documents. We'll find out. And U.S. Treasury will go back to gold and silver. Like I said all along, the reason to invest in silver is 170 years of price suppression. The reason to invest in cryptos is the future. I have no idea when that future is going to hit. We have a lot of pain to go through in cryptos, including the destruction of the SEC and the destruction of every single exchange, decentralized exchange, centralized exchange. I'll get to that in a second. That's a lot of pain. Here's a classic. So Patrick Duffy, is it Patrick? Terry Duffy. Terry Duffy, the criminal head of the CME, which runs the COMEX. This guy's been a criminal. I've been screaming about him. Go to Road to Ruta and look up Terry Duffy. And look how long I've been talking about this criminal. Remember, on the COMEX, the price of silver is determined. It's the only exchange on the planet that's it's determined. And that COMEX has been the most criminal trading exchange in history. And for the most of that time, it's been run by this guy, Terry Duffy. And they are a self-regulating entity, meaning that they're supposed to stop the rigging of the markets. They are the number one regulator. And they screwed up so badly the Department of Justice. CFTC is number 2. If the bank's involved, it's the Federal Reserve. And then the DOJ comes in. Back when Trump held the DOJ, he's like, they're not going to do their job. I'm going to go do it for them. And shut it down. Briefly. Part of it down. That's the only thing I'm pissed off at Trump about. He did everything, I think, who knows what he did behind the scenes. But I think he did everything to save our country except one thing. He left the market rigging. He left it completely. He rigged it more than anybody else, and now Biden's rigging it more than anybody else. Again, every president since Woodrow Wilson has rigged the gold and silver markets and the rest of the markets since day one. Mainly gold and silver, because gold and silver were money back then in 1913. And with the advent of computers and derivatives, toxic mess in the 1970s, poof. The easiest thing to do is to rig a market. If you got the regulator in your pocket and you have unlimited funds, the U.S. government has unlimited derivative trades that they can do. It's done out of the Exchange Stabilization Fund. They don't need authorization for money. They deal in derivatives, and derivatives are what sets price. Just keep that in mind. So the latest on Gary Gensler. Gary Gensler, SEC, is rushing to unveil big changes amid FTX scandal. Of course, this was all done on purpose. Gary Gensler was the regulator. He knew FTX was a fraud over a year ago. The whole time he knew. He knew how it was structured. He knew how it was set up. He knew everything about it, and he did nothing. Just like silver, he knew everything about the rigging of silver, and he did nothing. Causing people to get destroyed on, May 1st, 2011 in silver. The big silver slam went up to $50. Everybody's like, it's going over $50. I knew it was JP Morgan. And Gary Gensler was the guy overseeing it, and he did nothing on purpose. It's so bad, I can't even tell you. Anyway, Gary Gensler's coming in as the sheriff. Why does Gary Gensler care so much? Because he wants the old system to continue. The only way to continue the old system is make the new system just as fraudulent as the old system, where derivatives control the price. That's exactly what happens either on these crypto derivative exchanges, or even more times on the actual exchanges that don't even hold the cryptos. The funny thing to me was a lot of people put Bitcoin into their FTX account, and the balance sheet showed no Bitcoin at all held by FTX. If you put anything, it's gone into FTX, or FTX US, or FTX, or Ledger X, which is their derivative arm that they tried to set up just like the COMEX and the silver price. This is the exact same thing. That's what Gary Gensler wants to rush in and save everybody. You register with us, you're fine. Why do you think they took out Reggie Middleton in the early days of cryptos and haven't done shit since? Because they want to structure the system the same way the old system was structured. Total and complete control over price at all times. Using the derivatives and computers that Gary Gensler is like, yeah, I can do it for us. So all the bankers love Gary Gensler. They put him at the head of the SEC. The biggest problem with Gensler, he's a deep state guy. Of course he's involved with the Clintons. Of course he's involved with Sam Bankman-Fried's parents, whose mother, by the way, Barbara Fried, was the lawyer for Hillary Clinton, for Christ's sake. These people, the corruption goes so deep in the crypto cabal, and Gary Gensler's right in the middle of it. So here's how much pain is left. It's pretty easy to see. One, Tether's got to go. $65 billion. Tether is a joke. It's run by the pedo cabal. hey, it's going to be exposed. There's a couple of people starting to expose it. I've talked about it, what was it, 5 years ago before I got a cease and desist letter. Hey, I'll guarantee you I had nothing to do with it. I dropped it back then, so don't come after me and take me out. BitBoy is down there trying to expose Tether. That's a very dangerous little thing he's doing there. I don't know how far I'll get, but he needs to study the history of Tether to find out, do you really want to mess with these guys? I mean, Trump and the military would. Is that what it will take? I don't know. But yeah, this is a very dangerous move there, going down to Tether. But hey, let's take a look. What else has to go? All decentralized finance will be gone. Wait, Bix, but I have $10,000 locked up in some crazy DeFi scam. It's gone. It's already gone. Don't worry about it. It's long gone. Let's take a look at the exchanges. How about the derivative exchange? So the derivative exchange has to go in cryptos. Clearly, look how big these derivative exchanges are in crypto. And these derivative exchanges just all of a sudden popped out of nowhere. After the COMEX, set one up, they just started popping up all over the world. Look at the open interest: 27 billion, 2 billion, 1.3 billion, 3.6 billion. BitGet, almost a billion, 1.1 billion. All these are going to zero. BitCEX. I mean, half of these are the crypto cabal Tether people. These are all gone. Good night. Look at this one. CoinEx. Supposedly open interest of $285 billion. That's the most insane thing you'll ever hear. That's poof, gone. All this shit has got to go. 12 billion. Deepcoin. I mean, it's so insane. Yeah, with no regulators, no one would even give a shit about these things. Everything would be looked at as a fraud, and you got to prove you're not a fraud for people to get in. That's the way it should be. There should be no SEC. Reggie Middleton invented a way to go completely without the SEC. Completely without the middleman. No more JP Morgan, no more Fidelity, no more Charles Schwab, no more Robinhood. And what they do, they took him out. Will he come back? I don't know. The odds were almost impossible about a year ago, and now it's looking like, hey, they're going to have to do something when everything else falls. Because they're not going to trust anybody anymore. Gary Gensler is not trustworthy because he wouldn't stop it before it blew. Just like in the silver manipulation. He didn't stop it. He didn't even try to stop it. As a matter of fact, he ran cover for it. That's the world we live in now. So, hey, BitBoy, good on you, but be careful, my friend. Don't dig too deep. You might get, you might get dug too deep. I'm just saying, careful. The insanity has blown over into every aspect of the United States of America. It's time for Congress to file a lawsuit against President Biden over student debt. Biden's trying to give away on his order, his signature, $250,000 per taxpayer to college students who haven't paid off their debt because their major was underwater basket weaving, or gender studies in Lithuania. No, these people took out loans to do whatever they did with them. And by the way, why don't we go back on all the grants that were given too? I mean, the whole college fraud is just off the charts. Elizabeth Warren chiming in, millions of Americans would benefit from student debt. Most of the people, what did they say they do with their student debt? Buy cryptos. I want to buy a house. Well, everybody wants to buy a house. So give everybody all that money. Give everybody huge amounts of payoffs. Not just idiots who took out debt when they knew better. They should have known better. How much does a Lithuanian gender studies major make? I rest my case. You went to college, you partied for 4 years, or maybe you studied. Maybe you fought the injustices for 4 years and got paid for it. And now you're not paying back. Why was the U.S. government lending out money anyway? And the rate was like 2%, 1% was ridiculous. It was all a fraud. It was all a joke. And now Biden wants to give up everything they have. Why pay your taxes again? That's what we're getting to. Ultimately, that's what will come April. People will look at each other and say, what kind of world are we living in? Our tax money is going to the Ukraine and then shuffling around to FTX and then shuffling to the Democratic Party, and we have to pay more taxes so that the Democrats can do it again? No. It's getting ugly in the EU, in Europe. EU accuses Washington of making a fortune on the Ukraine war. Of course they are. Of course the United States wants this war. Of course the United States blew up the pipeline, obviously. That's the deep state. That's how they make their money. And then this really pissed me off. Iran demands U.S. team be kicked off the World Cup for altering their flag. First of all, I think it's bullshit, but why did they do it? Oh, we did it and the U.S. soccer team did it. They altered the flag, which is like illegal, supposedly. Why did they do it? For gender bullshit. We want to show our support for the women of Iran with our graphic for 24 hours. You're an idiot. Will the U.S. be kicked out of the World Cup? I don't know. But why are we here in the first place? The U.S. Soccer Federation should be disbanded and kicked out. This is sport. It's not political. Keep your bullshit politics to yourself. It's ruining a great game, the most beautiful game. Anyway, they play tomorrow, maybe. I don't know. They might get booted. We don't have much chance to win, truthfully. But it should be an interesting game. Watch out for false flags, too, over there. Who knows what's going to happen. Anyway, Miss Moonstone and I are talking tomorrow. So we're going to do early Jenny Moonstone discussion. There's so much to talk about. She gets so deep with these things. Go check it out on the private road at Road to Ruta. We talk about everything you want to talk about. Everything I can't talk about on YouTube. Go check that out. Go to roadtoruta.com, click on private road, and you can click on subscribe today, and you can get this cool silver Ruta coin, coolest coin ever made, double struck with a hand-painted red heart, certificate of authenticity. Check out how it's made. This is Bix. I'll talk to you.